Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot, your storyteller, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And all of you folk who are sensitive and have a belief in something that Cliff Hyde would call you a normie. Maybe I have to have everything is normal. It's normal. Oh, it's normal. I'm not wearing a mask. I want it normal. When you are that person, this show ain't for you. Remember, this is only for your entertainment's sake. I don't know nothing. Nothing, as Rudy Giuliani said, nothing is true. It's all fake news. And I was here. It is 1 o'clock. I said I'd be back, and I wanted to get a little bit of Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, and because she's always got a nice little first 10 minutes of everything that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening.
1-800.
Anyway, so how are you all doing? There's nobody there. And I'm going to be here. Earlier in the show, I left off where I was in Brazil, and I was in the Doctores, Versailles version, up in the hills of Búzios, Brazil. And, let's see, this is even work. Let's see. Like here. Yeah, seems to work. So there's two of you there, and one thumbs up. Hey, congratulations. Okay, so we're here, we're live, and here we go. Good morning, good evening.
Coming to you from the campus of East Tech.
Come on. Anyway, like I said, when I left you this morning, we were in Brazil, in Búzios, and I was smoking spliffs with the Doctor, right? And one of his, automaton, genetically engineered girls is playing the piano. And here it goes. Rock out, kids. Come on. 10 times.
From New York, this is
Democracy Now!
My fellow Americans, this was not a riot. This was a massacre.
Oh boy, I really like that.
One of the worst.
He must be talking to the Ku Klux Klan.
President Biden visits Tulsa, Oklahoma to mark the 100th anniversary of one of the deadliest race massacres in the nation's history, when a white mob attacked a Tulsa
It was a military endeavor,
killing an estimated 300 African Americans. We'll hear part
and putting 15,000 people out of the town. That was
Biden's proposals to close the racial wealth gap.
Oh yeah, good luck with that.
There is a tendency in this country to grossly underestimate the size of the black-white wealth gap. Folks are not typically aware that the difference in net worth between the average black and white household is approximately $840,000.
Plus, we look at the link between mass shootings and domestic violence.
Oh yeah.
The nexus of guns and domestic violence puts women and ultimately all of us at tremendous risk.
Yeah, baby.
So women in the United States are 21 times more likely to be killed with a gun than women in other high-income countries.
Yes, baby.
And we look at how the sports world is addressing mental health issues as tennis superstar Naomi Osaka withdraws from the French Open after being fined for refusing to take part in news conferences due to their effect on her mental health. All that and more coming up.
How's your mental health? What's going on?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
There's Amy.
President Biden spoke in Tulsa, Oklahoma yesterday on the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the single greatest acts of racist terror in U.S. history.
Well,
Over a span of 18 hours, a white mob burned down what was known as Black Wall Street, the thriving African-American neighborhood of Greenwood, killing an estimated 300 people. This is President Biden.
no, guys, it went for 3 days, right? And it was a military. These guys had machine guns. They kicked in the door in machine gun families. They burnt the whole Greenwood town down. And like she said, it was very affluent black. And it was known as the Black Wall Street. And the white people were just jealous of that. These people worked hard and, did the American dream. But they're black. How could that be, right? They had no guns. Second Amendment isn't for black folk or women, unless you are a white woman. Yes, but Asian or Chinese or Hispanic or black woman, not really, and most other women, not really. So the Second Amendment was, to have a militia, that was, the only way the South signed on to the Constitution was that each state was allowed to have their own militia and they could have guns for all white males. Right around the time of the American Revolution, a little after was the French Revolution, and then Haiti had a revolution where the black people revolted against the white folk there, and they were like brutal about it, and white folk in the South were really scared about that. And a lot of the white rich guys from Haiti had places in Mississippi, and so they went there and they brought their slaves with them. And those slaves were like infected with the idea of freedom, and so the only reason the South signed on to the Constitution was that they had a militia that was allowed to be there to put down whatever black revolution I might have, because Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, all those states, Texas, the population, like Mississippi, had about 4 million black slaves, and they had about 150,000 white rich guys who owned the plantations and were making bulk. I mean, the plantation of Mississippi made $4 billion in 1840 money for cotton. Cotton was king. You've heard that term? Cotton was king. Hey there, Fish. Good to see you. And so, and everyone's going, this is cancel culture. We can't talk about the black folk that 300 years of slavery. The New York Times thing. Oh, that's a terrible thing. Talking about what happened and all the way up to today. We don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear blah 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 blah. I'm white. I'm male. Black people aren't supposed to have it better than me. That's America, gang. And it's really, so if you go watch Cliff with 2 F's, Hyde, you will, and he's gone from the COVID-19 thing, and he was right on that. You should go take a look at if you can find his COVID-19, because he was right on it. And he has this whiteboard that he writes things on, and he did the graph exactly what was going to happen, and he pegged it. And he said the worst spike is going to be between September 11th of 2021 and March of 2022, which will then go into even more. Wow! I mean, 2022 will make 2021 look like, Dairy Queen. And 2021 will make 2020 look like Mary Poppins. So we are going into the fast lane of whoa. And one of the things in June, they will have disclosure of you know, aerial phenomena. Right? That's what they call it. Instead of calling it UFOs, they call it aerial phenomena. Anyway, and what that will bring is that will be the end of oil. That's why electric cars are coming up big time, because Nikola Tesla in the 1890s in Long Island at the Wardenclyffe facility, he discovered 0 point energy, meaning free energy, the current that flows between the bias of all the parallel universes, right? He was able to tap that, right? Then he was able to take that unlimited amount of current and dump it into a device that transmitted it through the air without wires around the world. And he was using it mostly as a telecommunication device. So you could have a carrier frequency and a current frequency. And then that's what the utilities do. That's why they can read your meter, because they can, have information being taken across the power lines. So all of this is going to happen, and it's going to be dumped, and we're going to have, the guys landing on the front lawn of the UN and the capitals and all the rest. I mean, in the next month or 2 or 3. But definitely disclosure, and definitely disclosure that this little bag of water, is a science project of the Anunnaki, and that we are owned by them. And that's why we had the banking institutions we do, because they are based on the Babylonian debt slavery, and we are slaves. We were bred to be slaves, right? And we are addicted to gold, right? Why? It's just a metal, Why aren't we addicted to copper, So that's happening real time soon. So you're going to have these two. Not forget, Republicans and Democrats, or conservatives, and forget that. Forget Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter or any of that, because it's going to be right in everyone's face that they aren't exceptional. They're just a bag of water. And that's if you think you are your bag of water, right? Then the guys who are like addicted to religion, all the born agains and the, et al., they will be told that their religion was just a financial scam and a way to keep the masses in line. That's kind of what Marx said, opiate of the masses. And based on some real truth, but we never get to see the real truth. We don't really, Jesus is a true character. But, you read the New Testament, it's James and Larry and Moe and Curly. But the smartest guy there is Jesus. Do they ever print his stuff? No. But he wrote it down. It's called the Dead Sea Scrolls. Go online. Take a look at that. That'll blow your mind. All this stuff is right in our face. It's like you can't not see it. But because you're a new, you want normie, you're a normie. Oh, I don't want anything to change. It's all the same. And look how much stuff has changed since 9/11, right? We don't have a constitution. We definitely don't have any rights anymore, so good luck with that, Then you have the other folk what are known as woo-woos, meaning they can woo-woo, they can move, they can be flexible. So if you can be flexible, then you're not going to have to worry. But man, like internet's going away. When the next, before September 11th or on September 11th, because I love remembering dates. So we're having, that little oil gas pipeline. Oops, and then right now we're experiencing the meat. Oops, and earlier late last year, we found a solar winds. The guys who had everyone's server taking care of them. The Russian intelligence guys got in there, and then through that got into all the defense of everybody's everything. And they won't talk about it because how much those guys, they didn't do any, haven't as of yet done any real harm, but they are already, like, a termite just gnawing through the internet controls et al., right? So it's going to come crashing down. And when they do that, they think they will have their, China and Russia and a few other folks think they'll have their own But no, because they're being played because guys like Musk and Jeff Bezos, who are just poster children, they have no brain matter to do anything, but they are the ones that are hoisted as, oh, the great inventors like Edison. And Edison was another poster child of good old Mr. What's his name? Moneybags Rothschild. So, and when I left you this morning, we were in Brazil, and I was sitting in the room with the doctor. And the doctor was a Nazi scientist, from Dachau and other death camps. And he was basically, he was one of the first, he kind of was a Greek scholar and realized the Greeks understood about genetic engineering. At least they knew about it. They knew the Anunnaki had done this to us. We were genetically engineered. And so they, Plato and a few others were like investigating it, and they wrote plays and poetry about it because that's how they communicated things. And so they, if you go back and read all that stuff and look at the Byzantine Empire and how it collapsed, and you look at the Tower of Babel and what that really was, and there are lots of great scholarly, not scholastic, scholarly treatises on all of this. And you have the internet. Might as well use it before it goes away. And I was lucky, I got to study at the feet of people like Joseph Campbell. And I wasn't matriculating. I was just, his fair-haired son that he liked as a student, because I only studied with him. I wasn't going to get a degree. I wasn't paying any money. He just, he liked the fact that I was there and that I would take interesting notes. And I wouldn't say anything during the class. I let all the other students say whatever the crap I wanted. But I would always, when that time came and the most important question needed to be asked, when he said, "Oh, say, anybody got any questions?" They were, but if he asked a date or a time or who this person is, no. So I would always have the number one question. And he would go, "Oh, well, that's a good one." So he would ask that in the middle of the class and then kind of tack and talk about that. So, and I would, he would give us things to write about, and I would write. And because I'm not, matriculating, I'm not doing anything except sitting at his feet and reading books in that great library of Georgetown. And the other, I used to go over to the, public library that is known as the Library of Congress. And I kind of befriended a librarian guy who was in the, patent library. And he was like Edison. He was like Einstein. He's a really brilliant physicist, and the only job he could get is in a patent library. So we had a great deal of fun. I would go there in his office. Nobody was ever down there. I was looking at everything. So, and that's, if you want access stuff, you find the guy on the lowest end of the totem pole. Because the totem pole, right? You see the totem pole, and there are all these animals, and there's a big, fancy bird at the top. And there's this little guy at the bottom being crushed by all the other ones. Well, the most, within the construct of the shamanic frame, the most powerful person on the totem pole is the guy on the bottom, because he's the foundation. Right? It's usually a turtle or an ant, which are the two first, animal guides that ever existed. So anyway, there I am in Brazil, and I'm sitting in this really plush place, his billiard thing, and about 10 of his fellow Nazis, and they were all, genetically engineered. They were all from back in the day, back from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, and they genetically, were transhuman. Now, they hadn't dumped themselves into a silicon personality, which is what Mr. Microsoft wants to do, but that's just a big jail cell. These guys genetically engineered, they extended their life. They didn't so these guys, they were 100 and something years old, and they looked like they were in their 30s, right? They looked better than me in a lot of ways. I was in my 30s, late 30s, early 40s. Anyway, and one day I'll dig out the photos of that scene. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and he has these women that make, Playboy bunnies look, the girls in those magazines look homely compared to these, because these girls were genetically engineered. He called them fembots. And they weren't robots, they were biologic, but they had no soul, no spirit. They did exactly what they were told, and they were, genetically engineered to please, sexually and emotionally. And so I'm sitting in this room, and him and I are like, off to the side. We had the nice little coffee table with espresso, and these two girls who were all the women were totally naked, and the 10 or so other Nazi guys were just going at it with these girls. And the closest thing I could kind of say was, if you've ever seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and what's her name? That movie was exactly what those Nazi guys were, right? And that scene of the orgy was exactly what was. I mean, these guys were going to town, and they were, sadists, so they weren't being, romantic about this. And this guy and I were just watching, and it was like watching TV, or a porno movie, a almost snuff film, because they could snuff these girls and it wouldn't matter, They would come back. There were like another 20 of the same model in the closet. And so anyway, he tells me, the story. So what do you know about? And I basically give him the 411 I just gave you. How many minutes has this been now? 21 minutes. That I kind of just gave you about, the Anunnaki and the this and the that, and, the Dead Sea Scrolls, blah, blah, blah. Yep, he goes, oh, good. But, you know the story. And then he goes on about what do you know about us? And I kind of give him the story of what I knew, and that where they came from, the Thule Society, and that they were more an esoteric thing. And basically everyone who wasn't part of the club, meaning the hierarchy of the esoteric. So everybody in that scene, even the, Goering and Hemmel and all those 7 guys, they weren't in the club. They were just poster boys. Adolf Hitler was more a juju baby, meaning he had been so manipulated spiritually, psychically, and biologically that he basically, was manifested as a entity that. What is this clone going to do? He's going to blow wood chips on a hill. Anyway, your connection is being avoided. So anyway, the doctor basically, we're talking about this, and he goes, so you impressed me. Everything you've done here in you just kind of waltzed in and did it, and and didn't even, you just did it, and then by doing it, you changed everything, and you changed it for the better in a way that's actually good for us. It's not like the poor people made more money, so we get less. It's actually doing better for everybody. So that's why we're looking for a guy like you. We realize you're not one of us, but you're all about making things better. And we're heading into a period, a transition period between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age. And we have to rebrand ourselves in a way that we still can represent in the Aquarian age, even though we are so antecedent to the Aquarian age that we'll probably be gone. So we need you to, and there is a tribe in the Amazon that we want you to, no one's been able to find them. No one's been able to go there. We want to send you there. I said, oh, so did you send anybody? Oh, yes, we send lots of people. Did any of them come back? No. So I said, so what, do these people get eaten, or we have no idea. And we even had some of them telemetered, just like we did when we sent the boys to the moon, and that signal was, they didn't even get halfway in before we lost the signal. So we want to send you in. And I was saying, so there's a big chance that I'm not coming back. And they go, yep. And like I said, it had been 3 years since I lost the love of my life. And if you go to xratted.blogspot.com, you will read all about how I lost the love of my life. And I didn't lose her. It just kind of, we didn't break up. She died. So, it's a whole, and you got to read that whole story to see what it was and how it worked out and what went down and all the above. So, anyway, I'm going to talk for as soon as these morons start up a big motor, I'm going to see you later. And I will say, next time, I'll tell you what happened when I met the Aborigines in the Amazon. So anyway, we had that big party. My sweetie of the time there, the doctor's second in command's daughter, who was a doctor, and she and I got along really good. Her big thing was she wanted to go to England and just be rich. And she was going to marry. She met this total dweeb Duke, and so she was going to marry him. And she had the lawyer sign up the thing so she would own everything. And so I didn't have a girlfriend, and my heart, my twin flame, was snuffed. And so I was just at that moment just kind of hanging in there. And I had done other jobs where I put myself on the line. When I worked for the New York City Housing Authority in their police department as a shrink, I would go and defuse really volatile situations. Is where I got my negotiation chops, and I got shot then. That's when I got shot. And so anyway, that's why I, when he said, "Yeah, you may not come back, probably won't, but it'll be an interesting ride," and you like that. That's I've been watching you. We've gotten to know each other. That is the thing that floats your boat, that information, that unknown knowledge, that all of the above. And I said, you're right. Okay, so how are we going to do this? He goes, well, you go back to your life here for the next couple of weeks, kind of get everything in line, and then we're going to go out. You think this house is nice? You should see my other place, out there in the Amazon. So I said, okay. So took care of business, got everything lined up, and then went back to his place, and we flew from his joint to his place in the Amazon, right? Because it was a good at least 1,000 miles away from where we were to where it was. And we land at this place, not there, but where his big yacht, gigantic ship, not a yacht, ship. It had like 20 staterooms and just really fancy, and had a helicopter and very schmancy. And so we took that boat up the Amazon to where there was a fork in the Amazon. And if you went this way, that's where they were chopping all the trees down. These trees the size, 100 feet wide, 600 feet tall. And they were just taking them down. And they had these Japanese factories in the Amazon chewing up that wood and turning it into like mahogany plywood, shit like it was just unbelievable. And they were burning everything else. It looked like hell. John Boy goes, I'm going to heaven because I'm nice. And hell is, you go to the Amazon, that's hell. You go to Syria now, that's hell. You go to, Gaza, that's hell. There are a lot of hells on earth, right? And we make them all. And the heavens that are still around are made by, all our relations, So I went up there, and his place, when we went the other way, up to his, it made Versailles look like a cardboard house, It was unfriggin' believable. And that's where him and his genetic buddies, they were human creatures that looked like, they were Kamara. They were like, looked like humans and bulls and crabs. They were genetically engineered to do specific things, and and they could talk to you, and you could talk to them to give them orders and stuff. But they weren't like your average bag of water. And the fact that I didn't freak out about any of this, that I was just interested. So how'd you do this? And what? They made him more and more sure that I was the guy for this little journey, right? So And it was very simple. You ever seen the movie Contact with what's her name? And they stick her in a little pod and they send her off across the universe, right? Well, it wasn't quite that, but it was a lot like that because they sent me into the Amazon. And first they took me in with one of their guys in a speedboat in, and then dropped me off at this kind of, town where the people cutting down the trees and doing it. And that was like being in hell. I was really stinky and really, yeah. And I had a good night's sleep. And I had this special suit that protected me from all the venomous everything. And if something tried to bite me, it would heal me. And I changed my diet for 3 weeks before I went. I didn't eat any sugar or any meat or anything. And I had these little wafers that tasted pretty good, very energetic, but, basically we're vegan, we're plant-based. And from there, another boat took me deeper down the Amazon. And that wasn't like the speedboat. It was a motorboat, but it wasn't, fancy schmancy. And then came to another kind of deeper inner town in the Amazon. Just a campsite, more or less, but people debauching and cutting and burning. And then the next day, I got on a canoe with a guy with a paddle who he was wearing a I Love New York t-shirt and sunglasses and shorts. And he canoed me in to another place that was, a little more down home. And then another one until I was picked up by a guy who was definitely native. He was not wearing anything except that he made, right? And his canoe was not like made out of fiberglass or tin or even wood, but out of a tree, right? And he was, and we went for a long time, and he dropped me off at a place where he didn't speak English. He kind of spoke Spanish. Portuguese, and I kind of spoke Portuguese. Basically, this is as far as I go, buddy. Someone will kind of meet you here. So he got me off, and I had this pack that was amazing. It had everything I would ever need, right? And when they said, "Oh, you're going to need a gun," I said, "Nope, I don't need a gun. I'm not taking any guns." But I had this. It looked like an umbrella, and it unfolded into the most comfy chair that did have an umbrella over the top of it. So if it was really rain, you could unsnap this thing and it would pop out, and you could put it on the ground, and it would be a very comfy chair and an umbrella, so you would get wet. It was quite nice. So I popped that thing out. I'm sitting there and chewing on one of those cookies, and I'm there for a good long time. And it starts to get dark, and it's right on the equator, so it takes a while to get dark. And it gets dark, and I decide to start a little fire. And I have my little fire kit, right? And I go, and before it really got dark, when it was still bright and I could see, I went around and made a little pile of wood and made my fire. I said, these guys, if it gets dark, I'm going to start a fire. So I should be prepared. So I was. And and I had this great kind of pixie dust that you sprinkled it on the wood, and you just kind of took a lighter to it, and poof, it went up, right? And if you had the pile of wood, just keep putting it on there, and you'd have a nice big fire, which I did. I prepared. And so when you have a fire in a place that is totally dark, and you're sitting next to it, it kind of blinds you. I mean, you're well lit up by the fire, but you can't see what's out there. And I did have some night vision goggles, but if I put them on then, I'd be totally blinded by the thing. So I'm just sitting there and keeping the animals away and keeping the bugs away. And because I hadn't eaten anything the bugs wanted to eat me on, it was okay. So anyway, I am sitting there, and then all of a sudden I look around and I see eyes, right? And then I just kind of smile and say, hello, I just kind of wave, right? And they just walk out of the forest. And they were naked. They had, little things covering their chops. But that's just so they didn't get caught on any dingleberry, so. But they were like, these guys were made up more than the guy who dropped me off earlier that day. So I'm just, and they're coming up and like touching me, you know, and and they were like, so I followed them, and we walked and we walked and we walked and we walked and we walked, and they had guy in front of me, guy behind me, and two guys on either side of me, and they were like keeping me. I mean, they could walk up and down on anything. I was, I had these great shoes on and great spacesuit, and still I was, so they, every time I went to fall over or fall off of something, they would grab me and keep me from hurting myself. And we keep walking and walking and walking, and every hour they would stop and kind of say, like, want to rest? And I would have a little drink of water, and a little nibble of one of my energy crackers, and do a little Tai Chi, and they would giggle, and then we'd walk and walk and walk and walk. And so they kind of probably came out of the woods around 10 p.m., give or take. And we show up into their neck of the woods at around sunrise. And the sun, deep, deep forest, it's not until like noon that the sun really is obvious because it's so dark because of the canopy. Anyway, we get in there, and I start to notice trails. A lot of people have been walking on this, and we're still not at the natives' hometown, and we walk into it, and around noon 30, where you can really see the light is coming down, straight down, and it's illuminating everything, and it's like a city, but it's in the trees, and these trees are ancient. The closest thing I can give you something to think about is the movie Avatar, and the big blue guys. That was these people, but they weren't blue and they weren't that tall. And but their homes were like that. They had everyone lived in hammocks. That's really where I love hammocks. I live in hammocks, and that's really where I got into the hammock scene. Right? There's something about sleeping in a hammock where you are about 100 feet off the ground, and you can't. And these hammocks they had kind of were like a pod. Once you got in them, they closed up around you, kept the insects kind of away, kept the animals away, and they had like these firefly things they kept in a little cage, and that was their night lights. I mean, they was magical beyond belief. And so I spent at least 3 weeks with these guys. And by the fourth day, we were talking, but telepathically, because this didn't work. The only thing they used this for was singing. So every time I heard anything come out of their mouth, and they had a beautiful voice. But once we got a nomenclature, I'd hold this up and say banana, and they, and after a while, I'd hear banana in my, so they were totally telepathic. So they were 6 and above, where I'm 5 and below. And yet they kind of, by being with them, and you hear a lot of people who go to Brazil and into the Amazon, and they go find a shaman, and they get some, bamboo dust blown up their nose, and I saw God, blah blah blah. Well, we didn't do any kind of substance, and it was more than that. So again, guys, you have to remember, you can't read it unless it's in capital letters. So you wrote a whole bunch of stuff here. Can't even see who it is. Because it's bright out and I'm in a dark space and a black screen with gray letters. Very hard to see. Alex, is that who it is? AG, HG, AG. Anyway. So capital letters, right? So anyway, I'm there with these guys, and I'm saying, and when I, visualize the Nazis, they see it and they go, ooh. And when I visualize at that crossroads in the Amazon and them cutting all the trees down and turning it into mahogany plywood, and then, that Doctore's fancy schmancy house and all these genetically cloned. They're not cloned. See, they're not copies of anything. They're engineered. In that book, Blade Runner, right? Those things weren't clones. They were genetically engineered to be this, that, and the other thing. And that's what these guys did. And they were doing it from the 30s and the 40s, right? And they did it because they had a group of people who genetically were the Hebrew nation. And that's why they picked them, because they were good stock to experiment on. Anyway, so I'm visualizing all this, and indigenous folk are going, and so what they shoot back at me are all of the indigenous people who were especially in South America and Central America, that when the Spanish showed up, I mean, there were like 6 million of them, and there were like 10 Spanish. Spanish had guns. And then all of a sudden, those people were gone, And Spanish said, oh, we scared them off with our guns. Right? No. Those guys walked into another dimension. And this is what I was shown by this Aboriginal tribe of folk, is that we're not worrying about any of the shit that you white folk do, because we are just going to step over the boundary here into this parallel universe. It's just like ours, but you're not here. You've wiped yourself out. And so you need to go back and tell them not to wipe themselves out, because they have potential. So when we think we're top of the heap, we are not. These guys out in the woods were way above us. They didn't need instrumentality. They didn't need an airplane to fly. They didn't need, some gigantic black hole device, like CERN to make, time travel. And so that is what, because of the correlation of the difference of what we're right on this line between the Piscean Age, 2012 was the end of the Piscean Age, and on the other side is the Aquarian Age. And that was, the end of the Mayan calendar. It's just not so much the Mayan calendar, but the Piscean calendar, and the Aquarian is starting up. But there's still that Venn diagram where all those old people who, are Piscean up the kazoo, like Mick O'Hanley and, the moron guy who's over in England, and Mogi and in India. They're all Piscean snakes, Biden and Donnie Yump, and so they are, that's what we're going to see right now we're seeing it right now. What's going down right now is, and every time something slips, the reality change slips, they try and, oh, no, and so, so everything's going to go up. Nothing's, economically, we're going to experience what Germany experienced in, between 28 and 33. But not so much, because if you can be flexible and because not everything's going to be an arm and a leg, just certain things that they, like the oil, like I just put in 8 gallons of gasoline in my car, and it cost me $30. Last, 2 months ago, it cost me 18. So, anyway. So, I'm there, the first week we got assimilated to each other, and we were communicating, and they danced. I mean, all they did was make art, have sex, dance, have party, and maybe 3 hours of the week they would go out and pick fruit and herbs and stuff, and I would go out with them and say, what's that, and they would see, in my mind, I would see what kind of medicinal herb it was, or what kind of yumminess it was, right? And that's really, that was the first time I've eaten insects before, but usually they're fried with chocolate on them or something like that. But that was the first time, other than the Aborigines I lived with in Australia, there was this thing that they kept giving me that was amazing. It was like, what are those things? Pork rinds that are fried, right? They're like fried pork rinds with chocolate and sprinkles on them, right? And they give me a little, cup of that, and I went, boy, this is great. More? More? And so one day, and I kept saying, what is this? What is this? And they would just giggle. And one day, my mentor said, we're going to go walk about and we'll talk about this and that and this and that. And that was great. So we were doing that, talking this and that, and we come up to a tree, and he goes, "You know those things you really, really love, and you constantly ask me what the heck they are, and I tell you I don't want to tell you?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "And this is why." So he pulls a piece of bark off this tree, and there are these white grubby things that are slithering around, and he picks up a rock and he mushes them, right, on the piece of bark, and out of their bodies comes blood and poop. And the blood was the chocolate sauce, the poop was the sprinkles, and their mushed up bodies was the fried pork rinds. So I can never eat those things again. And he just giggled. He goes, "From now on, when I give you something, don't ask me what it is. And don't think of this, right? Or you're not going to be eating much, you know?" So that was similar with these guys, but I had already had that experience. So when they offered me stuff, I just enjoyed it. I didn't, and they would put in my mind not what it was, but what it tasted like and how much enjoyment it would bring me. And so it was quite amazing, right? It was like being with the old crone to the 10th power, and not so Anglo-Saxon. And so we basically, around the night, told stories, and it was great storytelling because, I have to use my mouth to tell you a story. These guys would visualize it, and then I would kind of visualize my story, and they would we had a great conversation up here in spirit. And that's really what they said. This is spirit, not your soul, not your body, spirit. And this is why we can talk to you, you can talk to us, is because in spirit is where we are the same. There is no difference. Anyway, basically, I was sent there to what they could do, what it was, and from my point of view, I was given the guys who cut. All about what's the hell on earth that's going on outside your little place here, right? They kind of knew, and I said, "Well, they're coming to take your shit," and they knew that too. And I said, "You either have to get out of Dodge, or, do something to stop it." So, what I saw in my head was they were just not coming from one direction. They were being squeezed in, right? So it was nothing like they could keep going that way, like the American Indians tried to do. But so they went to and they showed me that they were going to another dimension. And they showed me also that 2012 was not so much the end of time, it was the beginning of time. And if you could be flexible enough to be able to see in those other dimensions, you could go there, not a problem. And so, but the religions, the politics, if you read Blake, and Blake goes on about the fall of empires in a big way, and the collapse of the center. And that's what's happening right now, the collapse of the center. And it's not being advertised, and it's just going to come and that's how the collapse of the center comes, like that, right? So what we're going through is an orchestrated event, right? To try and keep control, right? And but what is happening is the folk who think they're in control, the hidden hand, is that they are so full of themselves and have been doing this so long, they have lost the ability to see the unexpected consequence. And the unexpected consequence is that those of you of my cadre, who are my adepts, who are learning how to be flexible in a bigger way, not in, "Oh, I'm flexible, I can, not eat meat, I can, no, it's a lot deeper. It's a lot more, So let's have a little experiment, right? So the noise of the machine is far enough away that it's not overpowering, but it's there. So I'm going to go into state, and I want you to just listen to that sound. And by focusing on that sound and my energetics through the screen, you're going to be able to, those of you who are woo-woo enough, you're going to be able to experience this flexibility. Right? Okay. see the white light surrounding you in your imaginary mirror? Take that white light and shine it into your subconscious mind. That's your Akashic record. Your subconscious isn't a scary place. There are no monsters there. They're just information. You're walking into your library. There's a big fireplace, a flame. You see eternal flame, and there's some nice lounge chairs and coffee tables there. And in front of that is a big reading table, and there's light illuminating the whole table, and that's photonic light. Right? And you put your hand between the light and the table, there are no shadows. Right? And there's a real comfy chair, right? So you walk over, and you're between the table and the chair, and you look to your left, and you have a librarian, see your librarian clearly. You have an animal totem, see your animal totem clearly. And you have a guardian angel, see it clearly. Librarian brings you information, right? In the book, in the Akashic record. And you can see it, it's all there. It's like everything is there. You may not understand it. That's why you have your animal totem. Animal totem is there to give you insights into things you don't quite understand because you're restricted by your 5 and below senses, right? Our 5 senses can only register 0.00009% of what's going on in the universe. The other 99.999.04% is what we can't see. They call it dark matter, right? So they can mathematically figure out the volume and the density, how much it should weigh, theoretically, so they can. That's where they get that number. So if you are there in your Akashic record, and you are being shown down by the photonic light, not the incandescent light of this lying world, because there's a shadow. Look, there's a dark light side and a dark side to this world we live in. Whereas in the photonic world, everything is just light. Now there are points of darkness for reference to give you depth of field, right? And that's what the yin yang symbol is. Circle, that's the event horizon, and then the wavy pattern is the path of light. One side is white, the black dot. The other side is black with a white dot, and that is our reality. See it clearly. Go deeper and deeper and deeper into this sense of understanding that you are not your body, and your soul is just the server connecting you to your spirit, right? Which is on the other side, right, of this universe. We were incarcerated in this world because we had to be protected from the outside entities, and the outside entities had to be protected from us because we chose to broke the normie code, and Adam and Eve didn't commit the first sin. They were the first folk to break out of the slavery. Now, what happened? They got distracted. They got, family, job, blah, blah, blah. And then we got deeper and deeper into that distraction of the ego, right? Can you see this? So, the librarian brings over this big book. You open it up, and there's 2 blank pages. You put your left hand on the left page, right on that, and lean into it, and you evacuate. It's like vomit up all of your angst, all of your fear, all of your anger onto the blank page. And what you will see is like a Rorschach test, right? And you look at that, right? And go, what's that mean? Close the book, and you open it up, and it's no longer a smear of this vomit, but it's a screen with 27 little screens around it. And on the main screen, you see the main picture. 27 other ones represent the 27 other dimensions that you exist in, and it's giving you that, different angles of what's going on. See it clearly, right? So how you doing with all that? Right? What time is it now?
It's attacks are committed by men with histories of domestic violence. One of the deadliest mass shootings so far this year took place in San Jose, California last week, when a 57-year-old public transportation employee killed 9 of his co-workers at a light rail yard. Like many other mass killers, the gunman, Samuel Cassidy, had a history of domestic violence.
So that is the illusion right there. The reality is love's co-creation, right? And what do you do to get yourself into that? Now, I brought you into your Akashic record, right? I've got you to evacuate all of your anxiety. So now you can see on that screen all the past lives you've ever had, right? And just run your thumb up and down the inside of the book, the inside page, on the edges of the page, it's all covered in gold. You go up and down, it's like a mouse, and you can see all the past lives, and you can go into the future, but the future is not set, so it's a little hazy, but it'll give you perspective, right, on who and what you are. You're not your body, and you're not even your soul. Your soul is just the server connecting you to your spirit, because what is spirit? Your spirit is the reflection of God's, work in progress. God's name is not, I am who I am. It's not Popeye. It is, I am a work in progress, and you are my reflection. So, and that's why we're here, to give God his ability to have a perspective on what it's doing. And it's not a guy, not grandpa up in the clouds, not a feckless moron that religions are based on, any religion that, has this guy who's going to say, I love you unconditionally, except if you break these laws, I'm sending you to, have eternity in a jacuzzi of vomiting, hot excrement like lava. And if you do make it to heaven, which you probably won't, you'll just be bored out of your mind. No, I don't think so. No, that's not it. Right. Yep, a Brahmin. Yep. Anyway, so there you are. You're sitting at your eating table. You've evacuated all your angst and hate and fear and self-loathing, and you are seeing who and what you can do, what you can be, where you could go, and see it clearly. Right? And at night, before you go to sleep, do this same process and tell your subconscious, I want to remember my dreams, and I want to dream about this. And you can start navigating this in dream time. Why do you think this show is called Dreamy Dreamland? Not Dream Time. No, that's not it. That's a whole nother thing. And I don't want it yet. Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Alba, right? So go to, that's how you find me on YouTube, Dreamy Dreamland. Not, not Al or not Al Bob or not Dreamtime. None of those things will get you to my YouTube. And especially John tells people this because he knows he's not going to go there. And when he promises every time he does a video, oh, I'll link you to, your thing to this show. He's never done it yet, And that's because of his fear and anxiety. Because he is so, John is the poster child of the neurotic, who is totally based on, it's all about me. Everything's about me. Me. Well, that's not life. Life isn't about you. You aren't the exception, You are, all our relations. You are the reflection of the burning bushes work in progress. You're not perfect, but you can be the best you can be. With baby steps, you can do better and better. That's all you got to do. And the more you do that, more you focus on other, I've been out and about having to deal with doctors now for the last 3 days. And so, I've gone here, I've done shopping, done this. I've given maybe 10 readings in those 3 days. And out of those 10 people, 9 people were like, at a certain point, they were like, and then they were like, Whoa, how do you know me? How did you, what should I do? I said, you're not perfect. Don't shoot for perfection. Shoot for doing your best and do what makes you happy. So I went back to this store, and the lady was, taking care of, she's at the desk where if you have a problem, you go see her. Anyway, she hates everyone, and why she has that job, I have no idea. But anyway, she goes, I'm quitting this. I have enough money, and I'm going to move out into the woods like you, and I'm just going to paint paintings until, I said, good. That sounds like a good idea, And, here's where I live. I'll draw you a little map. You can visit you. Once you find your place, you tell me on the dudeawake42 at Gmail. If you want to get a hold of me and talk to me, just you and me, dudeawake42 at Gmail. If you want to send me anything on my PayPal, go to PayPal and they say, what's the email address? The dudeawake42 at Gmail. And I would truly, it's been a while since I've received something. It'd be really nice. I really appreciate it. It assists me to get out of, because it costs now. And like I said, I got 7 gallons for $30, So I try not to drive anywhere, but and the internet is slowly collapsing around me. So the place I used to drive 10 miles, the internet in that neck of the woods ain't working, period. It's just not, and they can't figure out why it doesn't work, and other places, so I've lost more than half of the places I used to go to get on the internet, and if this place and the other place I go to crash, then I won't be seeing it. Well, I'll go to the library, but that's not the best either. Last time I was on the library, it was really kind of funky, So that's what you're looking at, a pretty much total collapse of what you think is important in the material world. Your internet, your banking, your this, your that, and your car. And that's another thing. Internet and car crash, you're not seeing Al Bob. But if you go into state, you'll see me, what we just did, visualizing that light and your Akashic record and all that. That's when you can see me. So I got to go. I just wanted to, I said I'd be here at 1, and I was here on the dot, and it's almost 2 o'clock. Let's see. Yeah, screw it.